Hey, Nick here. Today I'm going to show you the 9 best ways to scrape any website in N8N. You're going to be able to scrape static sites, dynamic sites, JavaScript, social media, whatever the heck you want. By the end of the video, you'll know how to do it. I scaled my automation agency to $72K a month using no-code tools like Make and N8N, and scraping was a big part of that. So this video is just going to give you all the sauce. You're going to learn everything you need to scrape websites like that on your own. Let's get into it. All right, I'm going to jump into N8N in a minute and actually build these alongside you. And one other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sign up to all the services in front of you, walk you through the authentication and the onboarding flows, and get your API keys and stuff like that. But just before I do, want to explain very quickly the difference between a static site and then a dynamic site, because if you don't know this, scraping just gets a lot harder. And so we're just going to cover this in like 30 seconds, and we can move on. So basically, if this is you, okay, you're just this wonderful smiley person, and you want to access a static website, what you're doing is you're sending a request over basically to just like some document. You know, think about this as just like a piece of paper on a cupboard, and there's a bunch of text on this piece of paper. And what you do is you say, hey, can I have this piece of paper? And then the piece of paper just comes back to you with all of the information inside of the piece of paper. Okay. This is a very simplified version of what's actually going on, but static sites are by far the easiest thing to scrape. And so this is where, you know, a lot of people think all websites are at, and then they kind of confuse it with this next step, which is dynamic. A dynamic site essentially is not like that at all. Basically what you're doing is you're sending a request to a piece of paper, but the piece of paper has nothing on it, okay? What happens is this piece of paper then sends a request to some other dude, which I guess in this case is just a server really, who will then, he has a trusty pen in his hand, and he'll actually write all of the stuff on said piece of paper, and then you'll get the piece of paper back. So there's actually that intermediate step, okay, where basically you are pinging some sort of domain name or whatever. Then that domain name shoots some code over, forces a server to generate all of the contents on that domain, and then you get it. This is obviously kind of a 2-step process, and then this is a 3-step process. So if you just understand that, when you scrape a dynamic resource, what you're really doing is you're sending a request to a page, which sends a request back to another server, which then fills your thing. This eliminates 99% of the confusion, because most of the time, like scraping issues are, hey, I just pinged this page, but I got nothing back. You know, the HTTP request or whatever I sent, was fine, but for some weird reason, there's nothing on this page of any substance. Well, if that was the case for you, it was most likely because this was empty before you sent it over. Whereas, simple scraped static resources tend to just like give you what you want really quickly, and it's really easy. All right, so hopefully we at least understand that there's that difference between static and dynamic sites here. I'm not going to go into it more than that. We're actually just going to dive in with both feet, start doing a little bit of scraping, and then we'll kind of see where we land. I find the best way to do this stuff is just by example and being practical about it. So the first major way to scrape websites in N8N is using direct HTTP requests. This is also what I like to think of as the magic in scraping itself. What we're going to do is we're going to use a node called the HTTP request node to send a GET request to the website we want. This is going to work with static websites and non-JavaScript resources. So let me give you guys a website that I'm going to be scraping here. This is my own site. It's called LeftClick. I'm about to do a redesign, but this is a static resource. I know this because I built the site. I did it in code, and basically all this is just a document somewhere on my or on a server somewhere. So what I'm going to want to do is, and I'm just going to pretend that I haven't done any of this. So we're just going to go HTTP request. HTTP request node looks like this. We have a method field, a URL field, authentication field, query parameters, headers, body, and then some options down here as well. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste in the website that I want to visit. Okay. Then I'm just going to test the step. It's that easy. Now, the response from this on the right-hand side, you see all this code over here. This is what's called HTML, if you're unfamiliar. And HTML is basically just it's the code behind the site. So if I were to zoom in over here, you see where it says, I don't know, let's go to my website. Let's just find a little bit of text here. Build hands-off growth systems. Okay. If I just Command F and paste this in, we actually have that text buried somewhere in this big, long HTML string, right? So all that this HTML is this is the code that is sent to my browser, which is Google Chrome in this case. Then my browser takes the code and it just renders it into this beautiful looking thing. Well, beautiful is a subjective state, I would say, but this wonderful looking thing in front of us, which is this website with the sizing and the tabs and the divs and all that fun stuff, okay? So basically what I'm trying to say is everything over here on the right-hand side, this is the entire site. We can do anything we want with this information, and we can carry this information forward to do any one of many flows. So in my case, right, looking at a bunch of code isn't really very pretty. So one big thing that you'll find in the vast majority of modern scraping applications is you'll find that they'll take that HTML, which we saw earlier, and they'll convert it to something called Markdown. Okay. So this is a Markdown node. We have a mode of HTML to Markdown, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that data and I'm going to stick it in the HTML section of the HTML to Markdown converter. What do you think is going to happen when I test this? Well, we're going to convert this from this big, long, ugly, super dense thing with a bunch of these like greater than and less than symbols. And we're just going to convert it into something a little bit shorter, a little bit simpler. This is us just manipulating file formats, by the way. And I find that manipulating file formats is a big part of what makes a good scraper a good scraper. So now we have something in what's called Markdown format. What's the value there? Well, Markdown format does two things for us. One, it's much easier to parse. Parse just means we can extract different sections of the text we want. We can structure it in some sort of other data format. And then in my case, because I love using AI for everything, it's much easier and shorter for us to use with AI. So I'm going to give you guys a very simple example where we take this text from this static resource, and then we just use AI to tell us something about it. So I'll go down to OpenAI, and then what I'm going to do is I'll do the message a model. I just have to connect my credential here. I'm assuming that you've already connected a credential. If not, you're going to have to go to OpenAI's website when you do the connection and grab your API key and paste it in. There's some instructions that allow you to do so right over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the GPT-4o mini model. That's just the, I want to say most cost-effective one as of the time of this recording. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 prompts. I'm going to add a system prompt first. I'll say you are a helpful, intelligent web scraping assistant. Then I'm going to add a user prompt, and I'll say your task is to take the raw markdown of a website and convert it into structured data. Use the following format, and then I'm going to give it an example of what I want in what's called JSON JavaScript object notation format. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have it just pull out all the links on the website because I find that that's a very common scraping application. So I'll go links, and then I'm just going to show it an example of an array of, we'll go absolute URLs. This is very important that they're absolute URLs. Anything that we're going to build after this is going to be making use of the absolute URLs, not the relative URLs. If you're unfamiliar with what that means, if we zoom way in here, you see how there's this slash LeftClick underscore logogram.png. This is what's called a relative URL. If you were to copy this and paste this into here, this wouldn't actually do anything for us, right? What we want is we want this instead. We want LeftClick, aka the root of the domain, and then LeftClick underscore logogram, and that's how we get to the actual file asset. So if we go back over here, yeah, you know, basically we want a link array of absolute URLs, and then I'm just going to want plain text website copy. This is going to be a long string containing all of the website copy, containing just the text of the site, no formatting. And then why don't we do one more thing? Why don't we have like a summarized or summary? Let's do one line summary. Just to show you guys that you can also use AI to do other cool stuff. You could take this one line summary and feed it into some big sequence. You could have AI write an icebreaker for an email. You could do a million things with this, but I'll just say one line summary, brief summarization of what the site is and what the site is about. Let's do that. Okay, so this is our example. I'm going to say your website URL is LeftClick URL for the relative to absolute conversions is leftclick.ai. And then the final thing is I'm going to add one more user prompt. I'm just going to drag all of that markdown data in here. Then I'm going to click output content as JSON. I'm going to test this step. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee while this puppy processes. And we now have our output on the right-hand side. If we go to schema view, what you can see is we've now generated basically an array of links on the right-hand side, which contains every link on this website. Very cool. Looks like the vast majority of these are typeform links for some reason. Don't really know what's about that. Oh, right. It's because that's basically the only thing on my website. It's just a one-pager with a bunch of different links to typeform. That's funny. Anyway, you could obviously just get it to output one link or tell it, like, make sure all the links are unique or something. And then we have a big chunk of plain text website copy, right? And then we have a one-line summary of the site. So this is a very simple example of scraping. We're scraping a static resource, obviously, but when I build scrapers for clients or for my own business, This is always my first pass. I will always just make a basic HTTP request to the resource that I'm looking at. Because if I can make that HTTP request work, whether it's a GET request or whatever, the rest of my life building the scraper is so easy. I just take the data, I process it usually using AI or some very cheap per token thing, and then voila, like we've basically built out a scraper in this case, and it's only taken us what, 3 nodes, right? So that's number one. The second way to scrape websites in N8N is using a third-party service called Firecrawl and making an HTTP request to it. I'm using something called their extract endpoint. But just to make a long story short, Firecrawl is a very simple but high bandwidth service that turns websites into large language model ready data. And basically, you know how earlier we had to do HTTP request and then we had to convert all that stuff into Markdown and then we had to, manipulate that Markdown? What this does is it just does a lot of that stuff for you. It'll actually allow you to go scrape and then it will automatically convert text into Markdown for you so that you can do whatever the heck you want and turn it into structured data using AI and so on and so on and so forth. So if I were to do the same thing that I just did earlier with my own website, and then I were to, run an example of this, what it would go do is it would basically spin up a server for me, and it would actually go and generate Markdown of the same format. The only difference here is that it's actually generated new lines between sections of text. How beautiful. And then now, we have basically the same thing. You also get it in JSON, which is pretty cool. And, you can slot this into any workflow. This is basically like the simple and easy way of getting started. What we're going to be showing you today is the extract endpoint, which allows you to extract data just using a natural language prompt, which is pretty cool. And from here, we're going to be able to take any URL and just turn it into structured data, but we're not actually going to have to know how to parse. We're not going to have to know any code. We're not going to have to know any of that stuff. So let me actually run through the sign-up process with you guys. Go to firecrawl.dev here. I'm just going to open this up in an incognito and I'll show you guys what this looks like. All you do is you just go sign up. I'm going to add a password. We're then going to have to validate this one. Oh, guess these guys are mega secure. So now I'm going to go back to my email address. I'm going to count this up. And we have a callback here. I just need to paste this URL and put it in here. That's just because I'm doing this in an incognito tab. Normally when you do this, you're not going to have that step. Okay, great. Now we're inside of Firecrawl. They give you, I think, something like 500 free credits, something of that nature anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and just like give this extract endpoint just a basic natural language query. So let's go from the homepage at leftclick.ai. I want to extract a 1-line summary of the website. Let's do all of the text on the website, all of the copy on the website in plain text. Let's do a 1-line summary of the website, a 1-line icebreaker I can use as the first line of a cold email to the owner, and the company name, and a list of the services they provide. Let's do that. This is a lot of requests. We're asking it to do like 7 or 8 things. But all I need to do in order to make this work is I click generate parameters. It's going to basically now generate me a big object with a bunch of things. So copy, summary, icebreaker, company name. And now I can actually go and I can run this, okay? This is the URL it just parsed as well. Let's give it a run. What it's doing now is it's scraping the pages using their high throughput server. I just love this thing. Like, I'm not sponsored by Firecrawl or anything like that, but I love their, I don't know, I just love the design. I love this little like burning ember, whatever the heck you want to call it. I love how simple they've tried to make everything. It's great, honestly. Okay, awesome. And now you guys see we have basically a big array with a bunch of sub-objects. We have a summary, like I asked for, a list of services. Looks like we even have links to the specific places. Oh, okay, links from the resource. We have an icebreaker, and then we have the company name as well. So we can do a lot with this, right? But right now, this is just on a website. How do we actually bring this into N8N? Well, it's pretty simple. As you see, there's an integrate now button. You can either get code or you can use it in Zapier. Well, basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to run a request to their endpoint, and then we're going to want to turn that into basically our HTTP request. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm just going to do all of this stuff in curl. So if we go to curl, so you can see what we need to do is we need to format a request that looks something like this, but we need to make sure it's using the extract endpoint, okay? So I'm going to go down to extract. And then now I have this big, long, beautiful string. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my N8N instance, which is right over here. And then what I need to do is just open up an HTTP request module and then click import curl, just paste all this stuff inside. Now this is an example request, but that's okay. We can actually use that example request to very quickly and easily format our real request. Okay, so we're sending a bunch of headers. This is the endpoint that we're calling, api.firecrawl.dev/v1/extract. So basically what we're doing now is we're sending a request to Firecrawl, which will then send a request to the website, right? It's kind of a middleman. And then all I'm going to do is if I go back to my example, we have an API key here, which we're going to need. So I'm going to go here and then paste in an API key. So that's how that works, right? Authorization is going to be the name. Value is going to be bearer with a capital B space and then the API key. And then we also have a body that we need to adjust or edit. And this body is where we're going to put the links that we want to actually have scraped with the extract endpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete most of these. I'll go back to my LeftClick.ai, just like this. The prompts, because I was just using their playground before, we're actually going to need to convert this into a request for my service. So I'm just going to paste the prompt in here. Voila. And now we need to put together what's called a schema, where we have the objects that we asked for. So in my case, we asked for copy, right? So I'm going to go copy type string, then summary. So we're going to go summary type string, then icebreaker. It's going to be icebreaker type string. And then guess what? We have last but not least company name, which is going to be type string. We're also going to want to make these fields required. You can set it up so that they're not actually required when you do a request to Firecrawl. I'm going to make it so that they're required. So I'll go copy, summary, icebreaker, and then company name. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll leave company name as unrequired. If you think about it logically, maybe not all the websites we're going to be scraping using this service are going to have the company names visible on the website. I don't know, but maybe. So maybe I'll actually leave that as off. Okay, great. So now we have the API request formatted correctly. All we need to do at this point is just click test step. It looks like we're getting a JSON breaking error, and I think that's because I have this last comma. And I'm just going to check to see if there are any other commas. In JSON, you can't actually have the last element in an array have a comma on it. So I think that's okay. Let me test it again. All right, so as you can see, we just received an ID. We've got a success, and then we have a URL trace array, which is empty. If you think about this logically, we don't actually get all the data that we send immediately because we need Firecrawl to whip up the scraper, do things to the data. We could be feeding in 50 URLs here, right? So instead of just having the data available to us right now immediately, what we need to do is we need to basically wait a little while, wait until it's done, and then we need to ping it. And the reason why they've given us this ID parameter is so that we could do the pinging. So the way that you do this is you'd have to send a second HTTP request using this structure. So the good news is we could just copy this over, and then we can add a second HTTP request. I don't know where that went, but I guess I'm just going to create it over here. I'm going to import the curl to this request, just like that. And then keep in mind that we just need to add our API key again because the previous node had it, but this one doesn't. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to copy this puppy. Go back over here. I'm going to paste this in. Now, technically what this is called polling. Polling is where, you're attempting to request a resource that you don't know whether or not is ready. And there's a fair amount of logic that I'd recommend putting into a polling flow where when you try it and if it doesn't work, basically you wait a certain amount of time and you retry again. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to put all that stuff inside, but what I'm going to do is just set up this request. I'm going to give this puppy a test. Let's just feed that in on the back end. We got to put the extract ID right over here where it said extract ID. Then I'm just going to give this a test. Looks like I've issued a malformed request. We just have to make sure that everything here is okay. Specify body. Let me just make sure there's nothing else in here. Oh, it was a get request. This is a get. Cool. We're not going to send a body then. Awesome. And now we have all of the data available to us. Automate your business in the copy field, summary field. LeftClick's an AI-driven performance optimization agency. Icebreaker. Hi, Nick. I came across LeftClick. I'm impressed by you help B2B founders scale their business with automation. Keep in mind, I never gave it my name. It went and found my name on the website. And then company name LeftClick. So quick and easy way, you're going to have access to this template, obviously without my API key in it. And feel free to, use Firecrawl, go nuts, check out their documentation, build out as complex a scraping flow as need be. The third way to scrape websites in N8N is using Rapid API. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Rapid API is basically a giant marketplace of third-party scrapers, similar to Appify, which we'll cover in a moment. But instead of looking for, building out your own scraper for a resource, let's say you're wanting to scrape Instagram or something that's not a simple static site, what you can do is you could just get a scraper that somebody's already developed that does specifically that, using proxies and all that tough stuff that I tend to abstract away. And then you just request to Rapid API, which automatically handles the API request to the other thing that they want, and then they format it and then send it all back to you. And then, you have beautiful data that you could use for basically anything. So this is what Rapid API looks like. It's basically a big marketplace. I just pumped in a search for website over here, and we see 2,907 results. To give you guys some context, you can do everything from, scraping social data like emails, phone numbers, and stuff like that from a website. You could ping the Ahrefs SEO API. You could find like unofficial Medium data that they don't necessarily allow people to do so. This is just a quick and easy way to, I guess, do a first pass after you've run through Firecrawl. Maybe that doesn't work. After you've run through HTTP requests, that doesn't work. Just do a first pass. Look for something that scrapes the exact resource you're looking for, and then take it from there. So obviously, for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use the website scraper API, which is sort of just like a wrapper around what we're doing right now in N8N. But this website scraper API allows you to scrape some more dynamic data. Now, I'm not signed up to this, so I'm going to have to go through the sign up process, and I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. But yeah, we're gonna run through an API request to Rapid API, which is going to make this a lot easier. Just going to put in all of my information here. And then I'm going to do the classic email verification. Okay, just copy this puppy over. No, thank you, Rise. I use a time management app called Rise, and every time I go on my Gmail, I set my Gmail up as like a definitely do not do during your workday. Let's just call it personal projects. They don't ask me all these questions. My goal today is to browse available APIs. Awesome. So that's their onboarding. I think we're going to have to pay a little bit of money or something like that, which I'll sort out in a moment. But the scraper that I want is I just want the website one, right? So I'm going to type website in here. I'm going to look for wherever it was earlier, website scraper API. And now check this out. What we have is we have the app, which is the name of the specific API that we're requesting. We have an x-rapid API-key, and this is the API key we're going to use to make the request. Then we have the request URL, which is basically what we're pinging. And what we can do here is we could feed in the parameters, okay, what website we want to scrape. And we can actually just give it a run. So I'm going to have to subscribe to this in order to test it. I'm just going to go to the basic plan, and then I'm going to pay money per month. That probably seems the simplest way to do so. Okay, and I just ran through the payment. Let's actually head over here and let's just run a test using my website URL. We're going to test this endpoint now. And now this is actually going to go through Rapid API. It's going to spin up the server, and then it's going to send it. And what we see here is we have multiple fields that Rapid APIs or this particular scraper gives us. Let me just make this easier for you all to see. We have a text content field with all of the content of the website, which is cool. This is basically what I did earlier. But instead of me having to formulate this request, try and parse it and try and use AI tokens, what I did is I just sent the request to Rapid API and it did it all for me. Then we also have an HTML content field. I think we have one more here. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. As you can see, there is a ton of HTML. And then we also have a list of all of the images on the website, which is very, very cool and easily formatted. Again, something that I tried to do manually using AI, but now, we have everything in that nice absolute URL format. And then if they find any social media links, I don't believe there were more than Twitter, but if they find anything that's either Twitter, Instagram, whatever, then we have the link right over here. It looks like they even give you the scraping time. And if they scrape emails or phone numbers, they'll be there as well. So, Rapid API is obviously fantastic. This is a high throughput sort of thing. Why don't we actually run through what this would look like if we were to run a curl request? You see how it's automatically just formatting it as curl? Well, that just means we just jump back here, connect this to my HTTP request module, click import curl, paste it in like this, import, and it's actually going to go through and it's going to automatically map all these fields for me, right? Query parameter, URL, LeftClick.ai, beautiful. API key, x-rapid API host. Here's the host. Here's the name of the API key. Right, here's everything we need. Well, I can actually just recreate this request now inside of N8N as opposed to being on Rapid API. And then I have all the data accessible to me here. How cool is that? So we can do this for any major website, really. There are a lot of specific bespoke scrapers, obviously, which I don't know if you wanted to scrape. Let's go back to discovery. If you wanted to scrape like Instagram or something, you could scrape Instagram. You could do like Facebook scraping. You could scrape these large giants that are quite difficult to do. So Meta ad library, Facebook ad scraper. And depending on the plan that you're at, it might be more cost effective for you to sign up to some sort of monthly recurring thing rather than just pay 2 cents every single time you make one of these requests. You just kind of got to do that determination yourself, right? Like if you're scraping I don't know, 50 every day or 100 every day or something. Might be $1 or $2 a day, which is reasonable. But maybe if you want to scrape like 5,000, doing it the way that I was doing it a moment ago might be infeasible. The next way to scrape websites in N8N is using the web scraper Chrome extension and then tying that to a cloud service that delivers the data that you just created using their no-code tool in nicely bundled formats. It's called Cloud Sync as of the time of this recording. I think they changed the name a couple of times, but that's where we're at. Here is the name of the service, Web Scraper. Here is their website. Essentially what happens is you install a little Chrome plugin, which I'll show you guys how to do. Then you select the fields that you want scraped in various data formats. And then what you do is it handles JavaScript sites, dynamic sites, all that fun stuff. And then you can export that data as a cloud run to then send back, sorry, big sneeze, to then send back to some API or some service and then automatically do parsing and stuff like that. So very cool. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. This is sort of a more customized way to build this stuff, but I've seen a lot of people do this with N8N. So we're going to run through what it looks like. So first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to, let's just go cloud login. Or sorry, start free 7-day trial. As you can see, there's a free browser extension here. If you wanted to do, I don't know, like high scale stuff, you'd choose probably their project endpoint project plan where we have 5,000 URL credits. We can run a bunch of tasks in parallel. We could scrape dynamic sites, JavaScript sites. We have a bunch of different export options. Then we can also just connect it directly to all of these. What I'm going to do, just because I want this to kind of work as a first go, is I'm just going to sign up to a free trial here. Beautiful. Just created my account. Just go left click. Give it a phone number. We'll go leftclick.ai. We're going to go, I don't know, academic. Records needed per month. We'll go 0 to 1,000. Length of the project, I don't know. Let's go 2 to 3 months. Okay, great. So now we can import and run our own sitemap, or we can use a pre-made community sitemap. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to import this. We're then going to get the Chrome extension web scraper. Let me add that extension in. It's going to download it, do all that fun stuff. Beautiful. So now we have it right over here. I'm just going to pin it to my browser to make my life easier. Go to leftclick.ai, open up this puppy. Now there's a bunch of like tutorials on how to use this stuff. That's not that big of a deal. But basically the thing you need is you need to hold Command plus Option plus I to open up your developer tools. And you'll just find it on the, in my case, the far right. So Command, Option I, that'll open up Dev Tools. You see all the way on the right-hand side here, I have a couple other things like Make and Cookie Editor. But all the way on the right-hand side here, we have this web scraper thing. So what you're going to want to do first, you're going to want to create a sitemap for the resource that you're going to want to scrape. I'm just going to call it LeftClick. And I just want to scrape leftclick.ai. Okay, once we have our sitemap, if I just give that a quick little click, I can then add a new selector. And the really cool thing about this web scraper is, if I just zoom out a little bit here, what you can do is you can select the elements on the website that you want scraped. So for instance, it's a very quick and easy way to do this, if you think about it. Like just to show you guys an example, structured data is sort of like an e-commerce application. Let's say you have like the title of a product and you have like, I don't know, the description of a product. So on my website, really quick and easy way to do this is let's just call this products. And it's a type text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click select. Then I'll just click on this. And I'll click on this as well. And as you see, it'll automatically find all of the headings that I'm looking for. So that's products. We are going to then click data. I'm going to click done selecting data preview. As you can see, it only selected one of them, the very first. So what we're going to want to do is go multiple. And now if I data preview, we get all of the headings, which is very cool. So now we have basically like a list of headings. From here, I'm going to save this selector. I'm going to add a new one. Let's go product descriptions. And then going to select this. It'll select all of them. I'll go multiple. Data preview just to make sure that it looks good. I'm getting no data extracted here. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually select didn't actually finish it. Now we're getting product descriptions. That's pretty cool. This is me doing this sort of like one at a time. You can also group the selectors. There you go. It's actually offered to group it for me. So we can group this into one object with products and then product descriptions. So let's automatically group it. Now we have wrapper for products and product descriptions. Then we have products and product descriptions buried underneath. We could go as far as we want with this, but basically what I'm trying to show you guys is very simple and easy to just drag your mouse over the specific thing you want. If you select more than one, it'll automatically find all of them on the website, which is really cool. Okay, great. Once we have this, what I can do is I can actually go export sitemap. So now I have all of the code on the website that actually goes and finds it for me. Then I can paste this in here. I'll just call this LeftClick scraper. Then I'm going to import this to my cloud scraper. I think I'm running into Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think we can do a space there. My bad. Just call it left click. And now what we can do is we can actually just like run a server instance that goes out and then scrapes this for us. Okay. So I'm going to click scrape. Looks like I need to verify my email. So just make sure you do that before you try and get ahead of yourself like I was. Okay. Looks like we just verified the email. Let's head back over here, refresh, and then scrape. We've now scheduled a scraping job for this sitemap. Scheduling, in their lingo just means that it's now part of their big long queue of thousands of other things that they're probably scraping through their server, and that's fine. Okay, I just gave this a refresh, and as we see, we have now finished said scraping job. We have all of the data available to us using their UI. But now that we've gone through this process of, building out this thing, how do we actually take that and then use it in our N8N flows? So a variety of ways. If you wanted to connect this, let's say, to specific service like Dropbox, Google Sheets, dump any row or something, Google Drive, I'd recommend just doing it directly through their integration. It's just a lot easier to get the data there, and then you can just connect it to N8N and watch the data as it comes in or something. You can also use the web scraper API. This is pretty neat because you can, that's what we're going to end up using. It's pretty neat because you can like schedule jobs, you can send jobs, you can do basically everything just through the N8N interface. And then we can just retrieve the data afterwards, which is pretty neat. This is basically what you end up getting. You end up with scraping job ID, status, sitemap, all this fun stuff. And then we can set like a webhook URL where we receive the request. So let me check. We need a scraping, for testing, you need a scraping job that has already been finished. I think our scraping job has already been finished. I'm just going to go HTTPS back to my N8N flow. And I'm actually going to build an N8N webhook. Give that a click. I'm not going to have any authentication. Let me just turn all this off. Basically what we want is we want to use this as our test event. We're going to go back to the API, paste this in, save. And I'm just going to want to give it a test endpoint here. So test. Looks like the push notification was failed. The reason why is because it's saying this webhook is not registered for post request. Did you mean to make a get request? Beautiful. Thank you, N8N. We absolutely did. So I'm going to stop listening, change the HTTP method here to post. There's basically two ways to call a website, and this is one of them. I'm going to listen for test events, go back here, and then retest. Awesome. Looks like we've now triggered the beginning of our workflow using this data. Let's see what sort of information was in it. Okay, great. We have the scraping job ID, the status, execution mode. Okay, great. So we basically have everything we need now to set up a flow where we can schedule something in this web scraper service that maybe monitors some, list of e-commerce products or something every 12 hours. And then we can set up a webhook in N8N that will catch the notification, get the update. And what we can do is we can ping the web scraping API, which I'll show you how to set up in a second, to request the data from that particular scraping run. And from here, we can take that data, do whatever the heck we want with it. But obviously, let me show you an example of what the actual data looks like. So we just got the data from webhook. Let's set up an HTTP request to their API now, where we basically get the ID of the thing. And then we can call that back. So got my API token over here. I'm going to head over to their API documentation first. Okay, and then what we want to do is download the scrape data in CSV format, at least in my case. I imagine most of you guys are going to add this to a spreadsheet or whatever. You can very easily do whatever you want. There's also a JSON format endpoint here, but let's just do CSV for simplicity. So I've already gone ahead and I've gotten the method, which was a GET request. So I've added that up here. The URL was this over here with the scraping job ID and then your API token there. So what I've done is I've grabbed the API token and the scraping job ID. I mean, I hard-coded it in here just while I was doing the testing. Let's actually make this dynamic now. Drag the scraping job ID right over here, voila. And then the API token, if you guys remember back here on the API page, you have your access to your API token, so just copy that over. Great, and now if I run this, I'm actually selecting that specific job. Then from here, we have all of the data that we just scraped. As you can see, there's like the way that CSV works. Actually, let me just copy this over here. I just wanted to give this to you guys as an example of a different data type, but maybe some people here aren't really familiar with it. Basically, the way that it works is if I just paste this into like a Google Sheet, you see how it looks like this? Well, what you can do is if you just split the text to columns, you kind of see how there's like these four headings. There's web scraper order, web scraper startup, products, and then product descriptions, right? Imagine scraping this for some lead gen application, some e-commerce application. List of products here, product descriptions, maybe product prices, maybe product whatever the heck you want. So yeah, you can output in like a number of formats, and I just wanted to give you guys an example of what that looks like. The next way to scrape websites in N8N is using Appify. If you guys are no strangers to this channel, you know that I do Appify all the time, and I talk about them all the time because I think that they're just a great service. They've now given me a 30% discount where anybody can use it for, I was initially under the impression that it was lifetime. I think it's 3 months. So you probably get 30% off your first 3 months. Just check the description if you want that. But essentially all Appify is it is a marketplace very similar to Rapid API, although extraordinarily well maintained. And they also have a ton of guides set up to help you get, up and running with scraping any sort of application. So just as we had earlier, we have Instagram scrapers, we have TikTok scrapers, we have email scrapers, we have map scrapers, Google Maps. We could do, Twitter scrapers, Medium scrapers, right? Basically any service out there that has this dynamic aspect to it, that's not a simple HTTP request you can make, you could scrape it using Appify. And then obviously you have things too, like just like basic website crawlers. You could generate screenshots of sites. I mean, there's so many things. So let me walk you guys through what it looks like. Now, in my case, I'm not actually going to sign up to Appify because I have like 400 accounts, but trust me when I say it is a very easy and simple process. You go to appify.com, you go get started, you put in your email and your password. They'll give you $5 in free platform credit. You don't need any credit card, and you can just get up and running and start using this for yourself super easily. Then the second that you have all that, you'll be greeted with this screen. It is a console screen. Don't be concerned when you see this. This is super simple and easy and not a big deal. This is one of my free accounts. So I just wanted to show you guys what you can do with a free account. But from here, what you do is you go to the store. And as you can see, I'm just dark mode. All this is the same thing we were just looking at before. And then we're just going to run a test on the thing that we want to scrape. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is, for the purposes of this, I'm now going to do something different from what I was doing before, which was just left click over and over and over again. I think that kind of gets boring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape Instagram posts. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed in a name, Nick_Saraev. This is just my Instagram, which almost hit 10K in, like 15 days or something like that. But I'm going to feed in my Instagram here. And then I'm just going to grab the last 10 posts. Okay. Save and start. This is now going to run an actor. Actor is just their term for a scraper, which will go out. It'll extract data from my Nick_Saraev Instagram. And as you can see, we'll get a ton of fields: caption, owner, full name, owner, Instagram, URL, comments count, first comment, likes count, timestamp, query tag. We get everything from these guys, which is really cool. This might take, 30, 40, 50 seconds. We are spinning up a server in real time every time you do this. As you see in bottom left-hand corner, there's a little memory tab, which shows that we are legitimately running a server with 1 GB of memory right now. So generally, my recommendation when you use Appify is not to use it for one-off requests like this. Feed in 5 to 10, 15, 20 Instagram pages. But I just got the data back, and voila, we have it. It's right in front of us. We have all of the data of that person's Instagram profile. So you can see it's quite scalable in that way. So the question is obviously, how do you get this in N8N? Well, Appify has a really easy to use API, which I like doing. All you have is, we wanted to get the, get data set items. Okay. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, go back here, and then connect this to an HTTP request module. As you can see, we have this big long field here with my Appify API token and the specific data set that I'm looking for. I'll show you how to get it dynamically, but I just wanted to allow you to see how to get data in N8N really quickly. Now, if we go to the schema view, we can see we already have all of the data that we had from Appify a second ago. Okay. Super easy and quick and simple to get up and running. We have the input URL field, the ID field, the type, the short code, caption. Now, this is Instagram. Looks like we have some comments. I don't have any style. How do I create? My man, you just got to fake it till you make it. I don't have any style either. Just some nerd in my mom's basement. Yeah, so you can scrape any resource you want here. Obviously, I was scraping an Instagram resource, but if you were scraping something else, there'd be no change to this at all. No change whatsoever. Now, basically what we need in order to make this dynamic, basically make us able to run something in Appify and then get it in N8N, so we need to set up an integration. So just head over to this tab, set up integration, and then all you want to do is you just want to do webhook. Send an HTTP post webhook when a specific actor event happens. The actor event that we're going to want is basically when the run is succeeded. The URL we're going to want to send this to, if you think about it. Let me just actually make another webhook request here. Webhook. The URL we're going to want to send it to is going to be this test URL over here. Now I'm just going to delete all the header auth stuff here because It just complicates it, especially for beginners. But we're going to copy this over, head back over here, paste in this URL. And then let me see, this is a post request, I think. I don't actually remember. So we're going to have to double check. I think it's a post request. Yeah. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen for a test event, run the test webhook. So we're making a get request. Okay. So the fact that it hasn't connected yet probably tells me it's a post request. So let's move over here, move this down to post. Now let's listen to a test event. Let's run this puppy one more time. So we just dispatched it, and yeah, the post request succeeded. And what did we get? We got tons of information. We got a body with a user ID, created at, event data, joke, right? Looks like when you test something out, they just send you a joke about how Chuck Norris can skeletize a cow in 2 minutes. Have you ever heard of the word skeletize before this moment? I haven't. I want to be known for my ability to skeletize. We'll go Instagram, website, scraper. Okay, and now if we go back here, right, we're now listening for a test event. So I'm going to listen for this test event. I'm going to run the same scraper again. Maybe we'll make it 5 posts per profile just to make it a little faster. And once this is done, what it's going to do is it's going to send a record of all the information we need to get the data over to N8N. We're going to catch that information, and then we're going to use it to query the database basically that it created for that particular Instagram run, which will then enable us to do whatever the heck we want with it. So it's now starting to crawl, as we see here. We had 5 requests, so it should be able to do this in like the next 5 seconds or so. Okay, and once that's done, we now have an actor succeeded event. And then we have, let me see. The data that we want would be the default dataset ID down over here. So if we just go to that next HTTP request node, what I can do is I can feed that in as a variable right here. Let's go into default dataset ID. Drag that in between these 2 little lines. And now we can test that step with actual live data. Now we have everything that we need. So I don't know, maybe now you want to feed this into AI and you want to have AI tell you something about the last 5 posts, tell you, wow, those last 5 posts were amazing, Nick. I loved specifically the one on Korea, and I just wanted to send you over some quick assets to help you out, right? You can now do super dynamic and structured outreach. You could take that data and use it to like draft up your own post. I mean, the options are ultimately unlimited. That's why I love Appify so much. The 6th way to scrape websites with N8N is data for SEO. This is another third-party service, but it's a very high-quality one that's specifically geared towards search engine optimization requests. If you guys haven't seen data for SEO before, it's basically this big API stack that allows you to do things like automatically query a service, maybe some e-commerce website or some content website, and then like extract things in nicely structured formatting. Again, specifically for SEO purposes. Tons of APIs here as well. I mean, a lot of these services are now going towards like more marketplace style stuff, but just to give you guys an example, you could call like Google really quickly to scrape a big list of Google search results for a term, and then you could like feed that into one of any of the other scrapers that we set up here to get data on stuff. You could go Google Images, Google Maps, you could do Bing, Baidu, YouTube, Google's their own data set feature. I don't really know what that is, but I imagine it's pretty cool. And then you can take this data and do really fun stuff with it. So I'm just going to click try for free over here in the top right-hand corner, show you guys what that looks like. And as you see here, I signed in to data for SEO to my own account. Looks like I have 38 million bajillion dollars. But obviously you'd have to go through the rigmarole of creating your own account. So why don't I actually just do that with you, and then I'll just use that account that is 38 million bajillion dollars. We'll click try for free. We'll go Nicky Wiki. Let's use a different email. Oh, I need a business email, huh? That's unfortunate. Okay, I do agree to the terms of use. Absolutely. Bicycle. Is that a bicycle? That's not a bicycle. What does it mean when I can't answer these? Does it mean that I'm a robot? If you look at some of my posts, some of my comments, people would absolutely say, yes, it means that you're a robot. I don't know why people keep saying stuff like, dude, Nick, nice AI avatar, bro. But it's not an AI avatar. It's not an AI avatar at all. It's actually just me. Okay, anyway, so I need to activate my account. It doesn't look like it allows you to feed in the code here, so I'm just going to feed it in myself. It's obviously getting a lot of spammers, hence this bicycle stuff. I don't know why the code isn't working here. Let me just copy this link address, paste it in here instead. There you go. Okay, great. So now you can sign in. And once you're in, You got also, they're actually really big on bicycles. They're training a model to convert all atoms on planet Earth into bicycles. They'll actually give you $1 worth of API access, which with credits, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go over to mine, which is $38 million bajillion dollars with 9,999 estimated days to go. And yeah, let's actually run through this. The first thing that I recommend you do is go over to Playground on the left-hand side. There's all of their different API endpoints that you can call. What I'm going to do is I'll just go to SERP for now, just to show you that you could scrape Google with this pretty easily. So maybe I'm in the UK and I want to scrape, let me see, a keyword, Nick Saraev. Okay. Then I'm going to send a request to this API. There's a bunch of other terms here that are going to make more sense if you're an SEO person. But now we receive as output a structured object with a ton of stuff, right? We have the first result here. It's like an organic one with some big URL, a bunch of chips. I have like a knowledge graph profile, which is cool. Apparently it says I'm a freelance writer. We have a bunch of data here, you can use this to get URLs of specific things. And then with the URLs, you can then feed that into scrapers that do more, like I talked about earlier, maybe Appify or maybe Wrap API, maybe Firecrawl. So a lot of options here to like create your own very complex flows. You can do other stuff as well. You can grab a bunch of keyword data. So maybe you wanted to find a keyword. And maybe, again, it's Nick Saraev. Location you want, let's do United States. That'll probably be better. Language, I'm just not going to select in language, and then I'll do a request. So now it's going to find us a bunch of search volume related stuff. So I don't actually know how many people are searching for me. In 2025, apparently 390. Is this per month? Wonder if it's per month, per day. That's interesting. I don't really know why they break it down by like the month date. Yeah, looks like it's 390 per month. So to the 390 people that are Googling me, who are you and what do you want? No, just kidding. You can do things like you could find backlinks. So you could find links for, I believe you feed in a website URL and then it finds backlinks to that website. So this is you technically now scraping a bunch of other websites looking for links to the specific resource that you have. That's kind of neat. It looks like that found it basically immediately, which is really, really cool. And it looks like they're referring top level links that are .coms, .bgs. .bgs would be interesting. I wonder where that's coming from. There's a content generation API playground. So you could, feed in some text and then have it generate other stuff. But I think we're kind of getting away from the actual thing that matters, which is the scraping of the websites. So yeah, lots of stuff for sure. Now that's all good, but let's actually turn this into an API call. If we head over to the API of data for SEO, so in my case, docs.dataforseo.com/v3/on_page/content_parsing/live. That's what I'm curious about. You'll see that we have a post request that we need to send to this URL. Well, I have a curl just like this, which I can feed into an API request, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm just going to import this curl. Import. And it's going to go through and it's basically going to parse out all these fields that I'm interested in with the URL, which I'll go HTTPS, LeftClick.ai. And then we have sort of like a gotcha here that a lot of people don't understand. This is the authorization. The authorization is a little bit different from most of the easy authorizations we've had so far. We actually have to convert it. We have to go one more step basically to make this work. If I check out the, let's see, authorization here, what we need is we need to get the login and then so this is your username and then your password. Then we have to hash it, or not hash it, but we have to convert it into something called base 64. This is just how they do their API key stuff, I guess. It's kind of annoying, but it's just part and parcel of working with some APIs. You're just not always going to have it available to you really easily. So I'm just going to go back to data for SEO, and then I'm going to grab my credentials. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to base 64 encode the username and the password. I'm just going to leave that out. What I've done is I've actually gone through and done it in this edit fields node. Basically what you need to do is you need to have your username or your login. So maybe this is me searching Nick Saraev, Reddit, Nick at LeftClick.ai. So that might be my username. And then my password is what's called the API password. You can find that really quickly and easily just by going over here to API access and then API password. If you just signed up, it'll be visible right here. If it's been more than 24 hours, you actually have to send it by email. But anyway, so that's where I'd get the API password from. And then once you feed it in over here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to base 64 encode it like this. They just require you to use these creds or to operate with these creds as base 64 encoded versions. Base 64 is just a way to like translate into a slightly different number format. So once you have that, you would just feed in the variable right over here, just as follows, and then you could make a request to their API and receive data. So it looks like I was doing their content parsing live. You know, what I wanted to do is I just wanted to call their other endpoint, which I think was their like instant pages. This one right over here, so it's just v3. Once you've sorted this out, by the way, the API gets like extraordinarily easy to manage. You just need to like figure out the authentication. From there on out, all you're literally doing is just swapping out the requests. So, you know, if you want to do instant pages, all I'm doing is pumping that in there. I just sent a request and now I receive a bunch of links with different headings and so on and so forth. That's easy. The seventh way to scrape websites in N8N is using a third-party application called Crawlbase. They're known for their rotating proxies, which allow you to send very high volume API requests. So it's very proxy driven. This is their website. So it's a scraping platform similar to Rapid API you know, Appify. They support many of the major websites here. And the reason why they're so good at this is just because they, you know, as I mentioned, they rotate the hell out of these proxies. So we're just going to sign up to try it free. I'll use my business email here and then continue with email. We got to add a phone number. Obviously, we're going to do less than 1,000. I'm a CTO. I don't want to, what's the animal? Right. Is that an animal? Yes, it's an animal. Good God. Beep boop. We're going to head over to my Gmail and receive this now. So we need to confirm my account. Just going to copy this link address so that I can do this in one page. Awesome. We should be good to log in. So that's what's happening. We need to select the animal again. It doesn't believe. Really just doesn't believe. Okay, great. So now we have a crawling API, smart proxy thing. If you guys want to run like, I don't know, use in apps that have a proxy field specifically. I'm just going to keep things simple. We're doing this in N8N. So we're going to go Crawlbase API. We have 1,000 free crawls remaining. Very first thing we're going to want to do is just click start crawling now, just to get up and running with the API. And as you see here, these guys have probably one of the simplest APIs possible. All API URLs start with the following base part, click, and then all you need to do in order to make an API call is run the following sort of line. So this is a curl request. Obviously, we're in N8N, and one of the valuable parts of N8N is we can just import a curl request. So, well, I'm going to import it. As you can see here, we have a token field, then we just have the URL field of the place we want to crawl. So I'm going to do LeftClick.ai for now. I don't know if this token field was actually my real token. I don't believe so. Maybe we'll give it a try. Maybe it's like a test token or something. So now running this, and it looks like we just received a bunch of very spooky data. I don't like the spooky data. No spooky data for us. Sometimes spooky data like this. This seems kind of weird to me, actually. Just give me 1 second to make sure that's right. We are receiving a data parameter back, which is nice, but yeah, something about this is a little bit spooky. Was it a GET request or was it a POST request? No, I guess it's a GET request. Strange. Very, very strange. Okay, anyway, they give you two types of tokens here. This is why I'm talking about it to begin with. Also because I've just used it before for a couple of applications and I found it very easy. They give you a normal token and then they give you a JavaScript token as well. So the reason why that's valuable is because if you're scraping one of these websites I talked about before, where when you send a simple HTTP request, nothing pops up, really, like this is the purpose of this. You actually feed in a JavaScript token. When you use the JavaScript token, it'll automatically launch a browser instance inside of Crawlbase for you. So instead of you getting just like that empty thing back that I mentioned, you're actually going to get like a JavaScript version of the website where somebody went on the website, it loaded really briefly, and then they grabbed the code afterwards. So yeah, we have some API call stuff over here. This one's just using Amazon. This is pretty interesting. So I might actually give that a go just to give you guys an example of said Amazon scrape. Let's just go www.amazon.com. Oh, right. Amazon might be JavaScript, actually. So maybe we'll give that a go. No, it looks like we got the data from Amazon, which is pretty cool. If you feed that into the Markdown converter like we had before, it's going to feed in the HTML here, pump it into a data key. We've now converted this into, this is very long. Let's go tabular. We've now converted this into Markdown, which is cool. And this is pretty long, right? Obviously has all of the images and has all of the information on the site, which is cool. Then we can feed it into OpenAI like I did before, where I message a model. And I'm just going to copy from my previous application here to make my life a little bit easier. Where the heck are you? And then we're just going to feed in the code here. And then because I didn't feed in this, we should now run this. We're going to grab data from the site and we're going to try and, I mean, you know, we kind of all know what Amazon is and what it does, right? So I'm not expecting anything spectacular, but it's still going to go. It's going to give me all of the text on this Amazon page, and then I'm going to get a bunch of list of links, basically. Absolute URLs, ideally. Should play some Jeopardy music. Dun, 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 dun. Or maybe I'll play Star Wars music. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, we now have a schema with all of the links on the page, which is pretty cool. We have the plain text website copy. We have a one-line summary. Plain text website copy is a lot longer than this. Obviously, it's just shortening and truncating it for us. But yeah, very quick and easy way to use Crawlbase for this. Now, the value in Crawlbase is not necessarily just to send them to static websites like I talked about. It's to use like highly scalable scraping, where you're scraping many applications consistently. As you see here, the average API response time is between 4 to 10 seconds. So you will receive results back pretty quick. If you wanted to just send one request or 20 requests every second, think about it. Like 20 requests a second times 60 seconds a minute is 1,200 requests times 60 minutes in an hour, 72,000 requests, right? Sorry, just jumping around the place here. But you could send 72,000 requests basically an hour, which is crazy. And you can do so as quickly and as easily as just like adding an API call like this. And then it'll automatically distinguish between like a plain text thing or a JavaScript thing. Okay, the 8th way to scrape data in N8N, specifically website resources, is Octoparse. Octoparse is very similar to some of the other services that we've talked about. It is a web scraping tool that actually gives you quote unquote free web crawlers. And I'm just a fan of their UX. I think it's very clean. I think the way that they have their sign up flow and stuff's really easy. So if you've made it to this part of the tutorial and you have yet to sign up to one of these services, give Octoparse your thoughts. Let's double check that I haven't actually created an account using this. No, I haven't. Fantastic. So I should be able to jump through and show you guys what this looks like. We have a verification code I'm going to paste in. If you're not familiar with jumping around and stuff like this, or if you're wondering how I'm jumping around, I'm just using a bunch of website hotkeys. Okay, great. Account is now ready. So we can start a free premium trial if you want. I think you're going to have to add a card. I don't know if I have enough credits to actually do anything. But if I'm not, then I'll start that trial in a second. What you're going to have to do in order to make this work is you're going to want to download the Octoparse desktop app. So let's give it a quick and easy go. Just going to drag this puppy. If you are using something that is not macOS, you will not have this strange drag and drop feature here. Once that is done, you will have Octoparse accessible. Let's just open that up. Yes, I want to open this. Thank you. And the cool thing about Octoparse, kind of relative to what else, like the other scraping applications I talked about, is this is just running in a desktop app, like kind of in your computer. So like it's cool because it's just easy to get up and running with, and it's also local as opposed to a lot of these other ones, which are not. So I'm going to auto log in on my desktop app, remember my password, beautiful. The simplest and easiest way to scrape a service is just to pump in the URL here, then click start. And basically what will happen is it'll actually launch like an instance of your browser here with this little tool that'll allow you, similarly to the web scraping Chrome extension, select the elements on the page that you want scraped. So I don't know, maybe I want these logos scraped. The second that I tapped one, you'll see it automatically found 6 similar elements. So now I'm actually like scraping all of this stuff, okay? Now we have access to this sort of drag and drop or selector thing, similar to what we had before. If you click on one of these, you'll see it'll allow you to select all similar elements, which is pretty sweet. And then you can also do things like click elements and so on and so forth, extract the text data here. You can also tie that to other things, right? So as you see, I'm now mapping each of these very similarly to how I was doing before between the first field, which is the title of the product, and then the second field, which is like the field 2. So that's pretty sweet. We could do the same thing with a number of things. You could extract like the headings and then the values and so on and so on and so forth, but I'll kind of leave it there. So once you're done selecting all the elements that you want, all you do is you click run. And you have a choice between running it on your device versus running it on the cloud. So on the cloud is API supported. That's how you're going to get stuff into N8N. But I just want you guys to know that you can also just run it here. You could run it here, load up the URL, scrape all the things that you want on the specific page you're feeding in, and then you can be done with it. So I just selected run in the cloud. It's now going to open up said cloud instance. As we could see, we have this little field where it's running and extracting the data. We're now done, so I can export this data locally. But I could also do a lot of other stuff, which we'll show you in a second. So you can dump this automatically to Google Sheets. You could do Zapier to connect to Google Sheets, do like some sort of webhook connection, export to cloud storage, similar stuff to the web scraping Chrome extension. But for now, let's just export this as JSON. Give ourselves a JSON file here. Thank you. And yeah, now we have it locally. Now, in order to connect with the Octoparse API, what you're going to have to do is first you're going to have to request an access token. The way that you do this is you send a post request to this URL here. And the way that you format it is you need to send your username, your password, and then have the grant underscore type as password, okay? Now, password, obviously, just put in whatever your password is. Don't store it in plain text like I'm doing with my hypothetical password. Put it somewhere else and then grab that data and then use it. But the output of this is we have this big, long access token variable, which is great. After that, if I just go back to their API here, once we're here, we can actually extract the data that we need. So basically, the thing that you're going to want is you're going to want get data by offset. You can also use get non-exported data, which is interesting. So I think this just like dumps all of the data as not exported and then sends that over to you, I believe. But anyway, you could also get the data by offset. So if I go get request to openapi.octoparse.com/all, and then I just send a header with the URL parameter. This is a get request. We're going to send a header with the token. So authorization, bearer, and then feed in the access token here. Just make sure that this is just one space. No, it's 2. If I feed this in, it's saying that it's a bad request. Let me just triple check why. I think we need 3 fields. Yeah, I think we need 3 fields actually. My bad. We need this get request. Then we need the authorization header, like I talked about. Then we need 3 fields. Task ID. Yeah, right. Obviously, we need to feed in the task ID. So you need task ID, offset, or size. So we'll feed this in as query parameters here. So send query parameters. The first value was task ID. Second one was offset. And, offset is no capital. And the third was size. Offset's going to be 0. Size is going to be, I don't know, let's just do 1000. And what we need now is we need the task ID of the specific run that we just finished. Oh, in order to get the task list, you head over to task list, top right-hand corner here, task ID API. So we now have access to this. So if we go back to our N8N instance, we could feed that in here. If I test this step, you'll see that we now have all the data that we just asked for earlier. So a variety of ways to do this in practice, like Octoparse allows you to schedule runs. You could schedule them using their, whatever it is, like cloud service. You could use it to scrape, I don't know, Twitter. They have a variety of like other scrapers that you can check out just heading over to this new here. If we just go down to templates, there's a variety of other ways to scrape: Google Job Scraper, Glassdoor Scraper, Superpages Scraper. You could schedule these, right? And then what you can do in N8N is you could just query it once a day, grab all the data, like I showed you how to do a moment ago, dump that into some sheet. Octoparse is pretty cool. It's like more like an industrial enterprise level application, to be honest. So there might be some gotchas if you're not super familiar with working with like desktop apps and stuff, but I like the idea that you can also just scrape locally, which is pretty sweet. And the last of our 9 best ways to scrape websites in N8N is Browserless. Now, Browserless runs a headless Chrome instance in the cloud. This stuff is great for dynamic or heavy JavaScript websites. If you've never used Browserless before, the cool part about Browserless is it allows you to actually bypass CAPTCHAs, which is a big issue that a lot of people have. So I'm going to click try it for free. I'm going to enter my email address over here, verify. I need to submit a code, so let's head back over here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a ton of free trial signups, obviously. I don't have a promo code or anything. I don't have a company name. I'm just going to enter a password. I'm using this to get past, to avoid setting up a Puppeteer and Playwright server, sure. I'm going to click complete. We're now going to have 1,000 credits inside of Browserless, which is pretty sweet. And we'll get a full plan eventually. We now have an API token, so I can figure out how all of this stuff works here. I'm just going to dive right into the API. I can figure out how all of the API stuff works using their API docs, which are fantastic, by the way. And we don't want to do any of this stuff. We just want to do HTTP APIs, Browserless API index. Okay, great. So here's where we're at. If you want to send and receive a request, what you need to do is you send a request to one of these endpoints: content, unblock, download, function, PDF, screenshot, scrape, or performance. What we want for the purpose of this is just, let's do content, okay? This is the request right over here. So I'm just going to paste my API token up here, copy this request, feed it into N8N in the HTTP request module, as per usual. Nice, quick, and easy. I'm going to grab my API token, and where it says your API token here, I'm going to feed that in. What I want as a website is just LeftClick.ai. I'm going to run test step. We are now querying the API, and in seconds, we have access to the data. Same thing that we had before, but now we're using a pass-through, and Browserless is a great pass-through because, you know, they allow you to scrape things that go far beyond the usual static site thing. So, like, honestly, and I'm just leaving this as a secret and sort of a little, I guess, Easter egg for people that have made it this far in the video. Like, my go-to when scraping websites is, as I mentioned, do that HTTP request, trying to figure out if that works. Then do something like firecrawl.dev. But if that doesn't work, I do something like Browserless that has all of this stuff built in. And I especially use Browserless anytime that there's some sort of, you know, application where I'm just going to save this so I can make all my HTTP requests really easy. Especially when, you know, there's issues with CAPTCHAs and accessing resources and stuff. Check this out. Not only can you do the actual scrape, you can do a screenshot of the page as well. And because I've entered my token up here, the requests that I'm going to be setting up are as simple as importing the curl, then clicking test step. So straightforward. We now have a file, which is the screenshot. Now I used example domain there, but let's go LeftClick.ai, run this test. Now you can see we've actually like received a screenshot of the website view. Very sexy. And my website's pretty long, so keep in mind. And yeah, you know, obviously a lot you could do with that. You could download the site. You could turn the site into a PDF. So that's pretty neat. I don't think I've actually used this one before, but for the purposes of this demonstration, why don't we give it a try? We'll go over here, import the curl, paste it in. Voila. The website I'm going to do is LeftClick.ai. Going to test this step. So now their server's doing a couple things like scraping the site, then converting it all into PDF format, probably screenshotting a bunch of stuff too. If I view this now, we now have my file. It looks like it didn't capture all of the color aspects. That might just be difficult or whatever, but I still have like a PDF of the site, which is pretty neat. And yeah, I'll let you guys kind of screw around with this on your own, but there are a variety of cool applications you can use Browserless for. All right, I hope you guys appreciated the 9 best ways to scrape websites in N8N. As you guys could see, it's a combination of on-platform scraping using the HTTP request module, a lot of like API documentation, stuff like that if you want to get good at this. I'm releasing a masterclass on API stuff as part of my next N8N tutorial video. And then, you know, navigating this and then taking the data from these services and using them to do something that you want to do, like artificial intelligence to give you a summary of the site or generate icebreakers for you or do something else. Whether you're using a local application like Octoparse or maybe the web scraping Chrome extension, or using something like Firecrawl, Browserless, Appify, Rapid API, and so on and so forth. You now have everything that you need in order to scrape static sites, dynamic sites, super JS heavy websites, and even social media websites like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much for making it to this point in the video. If you have any suggestions for future content, drop them down below. More than happy to take your idea and run with it, assuming it's something that I haven't done before. And then if you guys could do me a really big solid, like, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thank you very much.